Hey guys, how's it going? I am streaming from a hotel in Arizona where we just finished at TPUSA, and I'm super excited to try to make this work because I'm doing it in a slightly different way than I ever have before. I have a little bit of a feedback loop on my screen, so hopefully I'm able to show you everything I want to show you. Today I'm going to be talking. Here, let me check and make sure I look okay. Okay, cool. Today I want to talk about this Li Fong thread that he put out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he is one of the authors of a horribly titled article called Truth Cops, which was about how the government was starting to get into bed with big tech giants, and they were discussing how they were going to try to be a little bit more controlling and a little more censorious of the whole situation. It was a very interesting article. If you guys have not read it, I recommend you do that. I will put that in a link in the description below. Forgot to grab that as I was going through. But before I get started, I have to say we went to America Fest and it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. We got to meet a bunch of you guys, which was really awesome. I had people come up to me who watched this show, tiny as it is, and I was so grateful and so excited to meet the everyday people who are hopefully encouraged by what I have to say. Today's show is not going to be super encouraging, unfortunately, but it will be illuminating. And we do know that sunlight is the best disinfectant, so we can hop right into it. Let me take a peek at my chat if I can. You guys are going to get a peek behind the scenes. There we go. Okay, hi Lydia, says Paul. Awesome. Okay, let's read this thread from Lee. 1. Twitter Files Part 8. How Twitter quietly aided the Pentagon's covert online PSYOP campaign. Oh, that's a strong start. Great. Despite promises to shut down covert state-run propaganda networks, Twitter docs show that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military's influence operations. Twitter has claimed for years that they make concerted efforts to detect and thwart government-backed platform manipulation. Here is Twitter testifying to Congress about its pledge to rapidly identify and shut down all state-backed covert information operations and deceptive propaganda. So here they're talking about combating attempts to interfere in conversations on Twitter remains a top priority for the company, and we continue to invest heavily in our detection, disruption, and transparency efforts related to state-backed information operations. Our goal is to remove bad faith actors and to advance public understanding of these critical topics. Wow, that's crazy. Let's hear how they did that. But behind the scenes, Twitter gave approval and special protection to the U.S. military's online psychological influence ops. That's Lee's words, not mine. Despite knowledge that Pentagon propaganda accounts used covert identities, Twitter did not suspend many for around 2 years or more. Some remain active. That is very interesting. In 2017, a U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM official, sent Twitter a list of 52 Arab language accounts, quote, we use to amplify certain messages, end quote. So these are other language accounts. That's fascinating. The official asked for priority service for 6 accounts, verification for 1, and whitelist abilities for the others. Wow. The same day CENTCOM sent the list, Twitter officials used a tool to grant a special whitelist tag that essentially provided verification status to the accounts without the blue check, meaning they are exempt from spam and abuse flags, more visible, and likely to trend on hashtags. The CENTCOM accounts on the list tweeted frequently about U.S. military priorities in the Middle East, including promoting anti-Iran messages, promotion of the Saudi Arabia U.S.-backed war in Yemen, and accurate U.S. drone strikes that claim to only hit terrorists. Wow, that's interesting. I wonder why the U.S. had a vested interest in promoting these voices. CENTCOM then shifted strategies and deleted disclosures of ties to the Twitter accounts. The bios of the accounts changed to seemingly organic profiles. One bio reads, Euphrates Pulse. Another used an apparent deepfake profile picture and claimed to be a source of Iraqi opinion. One Twitter official who spoke to me said he feels deceived by the covert shift. Still, many emails from throughout 2020 show that high-level Twitter executives were well aware of the Department of Defense's vast network of fake accounts and covert propaganda and did not suspend the accounts. For example, Twitter lawyer Jim Baker, oh yes, we know Jim, mused in a July 2020 email about an upcoming DoD meeting that the Pentagon used, quote, poor tradecraft in setting up its network, and were seeking strategies for not exposing the accounts that are linked to each other or to DOD or the USG. That would be, I believe, the United States government. Stasia Cardile, another Twitter attorney, replied that the Pentagon wanted an SCIF and may want to retroactively classify its social media activities to, quote, obfuscate their activity in this space, and that this may represent an overclassification to avoid embarrassment. I don't know what SCIF is. Let's see if it tells us. Jim, Angela, and I discussed standards in this classified briefing. I'm from Facebook. They're securing SCIF. I don't know what SCIF is, so if you guys can tell me, definitely let me know. That seems like an interesting and important point. In several other 2020 emails, high-level Twitter executives and lawyers discussed the covert network and even recirculated the 2017 list from CENTCOM and shared another list of 157 undisclosed Pentagon accounts, again mostly focused on Middle East military issues. In a May 2020 email, Twitter's Lisa Roman emailed the DoD with two lists. One was accounts previously provided to us, and another list Twitter detected. The accounts tweeted in Russian and Arabic on U.S. military issues in Syria and ISIS, and many also did not disclose Pentagon ties. Let's see what she was saying. I'd be grateful if you'd confirm receipt. You're able to access this spreadsheet without issues. Okay, first tab lists those accounts previously provided to us, and second, associated accounts that Twitter has discovered. Please note the second tab is not intended to be an exhaustive list, and if DoD is aware of additional associated accounts which may violate our rules, they should be included in the scope of our request. Interesting. So I'm not sure what they wanted to do with these accounts. Accounts previously provided to us, and another list that Twitter detected. Many of these secretive U.S. military propaganda accounts, despite detection by Twitter as late as 2020 but potentially earlier, continued tweeting through this year, some not suspended until May 2022 or later, according to records I reviewed. In August 2022, a Stanford Internet Observatory report exposed a U.S. military covert propaganda network on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and other apps using fake news portals and deepfake images and memes against U.S. foreign adversaries. Wow, I won't open that link right now, but you guys should definitely check out this thread. This one is from number 14. The U.S. propaganda network relentlessly pushed narratives against Russia, China, and other foreign countries. They accused Iran of threatening Iraq's water security and flooding the country with crystal meth and of harvesting the organs of Afghan refugees. Wow, this is like a campaign of information warfare, if you will. The Stanford report did not identify all the accounts in the network, but one they did name was the exact same Twitter account CENTCOM asked for whitelist privileges in its 2017 email. I verified via Twitter's internal tools. The account used an AI-created deepfake image, so that's this guy's picture. That's really interesting. This kind of creeps me out because this is not a real person. It looks like it. It looks perfectly fine. His face is a little bit asymmetrical. He looks mildly bemused. He's got a little smile line. So interesting. Issues with the left ear and the central alignment of the eye suggest it was generated using artificial intelligence techniques. That is very interesting. Yeah, you really can't see that left ear. We're going to learn how to identify whether something's created by AI. I know it's just a matter of time. And I know right now we think it looks impossible, but I'm willing to bet that this is definitely something we can tackle. In subsequent reporting, Twitter was cast as an unbiased hero for removing a network of fake user accounts promoting pro-Western policy positions. Media covering the story described Twitter as evenly applying its policies and proactive in suspending the DoD network. The reality is much more murky. Yeah, none of this is clear-cut, unfortunately. I know this all sounds terrible, but when you think about how the U.S. wages its wars against its enemies, it's not all out in the open. It's certainly not all up front. And if you're trying to convince people that your country is doing the right thing, I'd be willing to bet that almost every country does something similar to this. This was just that they were using Twitter to make this happen, which is not something that the American people expected. At least people who aren't like borderline paranoid or aware of Operation Mockingbird or all that other stuff, which is definitely something you guys should check out too. I kind of want to do a deep dive on that as well. Media covering the story described Twitter as evenly applying its policies and proactive in suspending the DoD network. Right, apparently that was a lie. Yeah, the reality is much more murky. Twitter actively assisted CENTCOM's network going back to 2017, and as late as 2020 knew these accounts were covert and designed to deceive, to manipulate the discourse, a violation of Twitter's policies and promises. They waited years to suspend. Twitter's comms team was closely in touch with reporters working to minimize Twitter's role. When the Washington Post reported on the scandal, Twitter officials congratulated each other because the story didn't mention any Twitter employees and focused largely on the Pentagon. Wow. So they were feeling a little guilty, and they were really glad that it didn't seem that they were in the spotlight. The conduct with the U.S. military's covert network stands in stark contrast with how Twitter has boasted about rapidly identifying and taking down covert accounts tied to state-backed influence operations, including Thailand, Russia, Venezuela, and others since 2016. Here's my reported piece with more details. I was given access to Twitter for a few days. I signed and agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. That's the way to do it. The searches were carried out by a Twitter attorney, so what I saw could be limited. Fascinating. Well, we'll look at this article. We'll see how long it is and then decide whether we want to read it today or look at it later. Okay, so The Intercept, again, they published Truth Cops, which you guys should also certainly check out. Oh, they're going to make me do this. Oh, I hate it when they do this. No, go away, go away. I wonder if I can. Sometimes you can make this go away. Yeah, sometimes you can't. Just the way it's set up. Well, you guys should check out this article too. Twitter aided the Pentagon in its covert online propaganda campaign. So that's all really interesting as well. You guys should read that whole thread. Lee is a good author, and he appears to be very serious about investigative journalism, so I can highly recommend him. The other thing that was brought to my attention was the fact that they actually took a bunch of money from the FBI to give to Twitter employees, and I'm going to look this up right now because this is something Elon Musk actually tweeted about. And I was like, holy moly, they are using our own tax dollars. Yep. The government was actually paying Twitter to censor people. Yep. Incredible. So this is from a Michael Schellenberger thread. So many tweets in this one. We're already at 46. The FBI's influence campaign may have been helped by the fact that it was paying Twitter millions of dollars for its staff time. I am happy to report we have collected $3 million, $415,323 since October 2019, reports an associate of Jim Baker in early 2021. That's amazing. That's amazing. So let's go to the top of this thread and see what... Oh my gosh, this thread is really long for sure. There have been a few threads since we last went over some of this Twitter stuff. I feel like we've been talking about it nonstop, but it is super important. Let's run through this real quick. We'll try to get some of the gist of it. Twitter Files Part 7, the FBI and the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay, so we're moving from the DOD using these covert accounts to try to alter people's opinions of the U.S. And we're going to look at exactly how the FBI worked with Twitter to get rid of the Hunter Biden story. How the FBI and intelligence community discredited factual information about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14th, 2020. That is incredible. In Twitter Files number 6, we saw the FBI relentlessly seek to exercise influence over Twitter, including over its content, users, and data. In Twitter Files number 7, we present evidence pointing to an organized effort by representatives of the intelligence community, IC, aimed at senior executives at news and social media companies to discredit leaked information about Hunter Biden before and after it was published. Let me see if I can pull up the chats so I don't miss anything you guys are saying. Don't want to do that. I think I'm going to have to log in with my other account. It's kind of annoying. The story begins in December 2019 when a Delaware computer shop owner named John Paul MacIsaac contacts the FBI about a laptop that Hunter Biden had left with him. I think we all know this part of the story. By August 2020, MacIsaac still had not heard back from the FBI, even though he had discovered evidence of criminal activity. So he emailed Rudy Giuliani. Listen to this. He emailed Rudy Giuliani, who was under FBI surveillance at the time. In early October, Giuliani gave it to the New York Post. Oh, I can see my face is a little bit off. Oh well, I'm sorry you guys. You get what you get. Doing my best in this hotel room. Yay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me for sure. I'm excited everyone's here. Merry Christmas, everybody. All right, let's continue. This is a terrible story. I'd rather focus on Christmas. Christmas is a lot more fun, but this is also really important. Shortly before 7 p.m. on October 13th, Hunter Biden's lawyer, George Masiris, emailed J.P. MacIsaac. Hunter and Messiris, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Messiers, had just learned from the New York Post that its story about the laptop would be published next day. John Paul, thank you for speaking with me tonight. As I indicated, I'm the lawyer for Hunter Biden, and I appreciate you reviewing your records on this matter. Thank you, George. At 9:22 p.m., FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sends 10 documents to Twitter's then head of site integrity, Yoel Roth, through Teleporter, a one-way communications channel from the FBI to Twitter. I'm enjoying how Michael Schellenberger crafts his tweets because he always throws in the most impactful pieces of the story right at the end. It's a one-way communications channel from the FBI to Twitter. Holy cow. She says, Twitter folks, heads up, I'll be sending a Teleporter link for you to download 10 documents. It is not spam. Please confirm receipt when you get it. Thanks. Elvis M. Chan, Supervisory Special Agent, Squad CUI-1, National Security, FBI San Francisco. Yoel Roth, received and downloaded. Thanks! Exclamation point. So great. I'm so glad they're working together. The next day, October 14th, 2020, the New York Post runs its explosive story revealing that business dealings of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Every single fact in it was accurate. That's what I'm saying. Right at the end of every tweet, he has these really pithy one-liners. And yet, within hours, Twitter and other social media companies censored the New York Post article, preventing it from spreading and, more importantly, undermining its credibility in the minds of many Americans. Why is that? What exactly happened? On December 2nd, M. Taibbi described the debate inside Twitter over its decision to censor a wholly accurate article. Since then, we've discovered new info that points to an organized effort by the intel community to influence Twitter and other platforms. First, it's important to understand that Hunter Biden earned tens of millions of dollars in contracts with foreign businesses, including ones linked to China's government for which Hunter Biden offered no real work. Here's an overview by investigative journalist Peter Schweizer. If you guys don't follow Peter Schweizer, Schweizer, you should certainly do so now. He's awesome. We had him on Timcast IRL, and he's very knowledgeable. And I will say right offhand that we knew this about the Biden family. In fact, let me pull up this article. Biden Inc. Yep, how middle-class Joe's family cashed in. Over his decades in office, middle-class Joe's family fortunes have closely tracked his political career. You guys can check that out as well. I will link that in the description too, because that's also very important. This is just a part of that puzzle. And yet, during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Yoel Roth to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. This is from a sworn declaration by Roth given in December 2020. Since 2018, I have had regular meetings with the Office of Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and industry peers regarding election security. During these weekly meetings, federal law enforcement agencies communicated that they expected hack and leak operations by state actors might occur in the period shortly before the 2020 presidential election, likely in October. I was told in these meetings that the intelligence community expected individuals associated with political campaigns would be subject to hacking attacks, and that material obtained through these hacking attacks would likely be disseminated over social media platforms, including Twitter. These expectations of hack and leak operations were discussed throughout 2020. I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors about a hack and leak operation that would involve Hunter Biden. Okay, so to me, this sounds like, you can look at it two ways. First of all, you could say, it's possible that they guessed that this would happen. They weren't sure, but they knew that Hunter Biden was kind of an Achilles heel for Joe Biden, that he would be the blackmail point for some perhaps unhappy foreign entity, somebody who didn't want Biden to be in office, who thought he would, for example, be too strict on China. I don't think that's the case because, for example, Joe Biden is not going to be too strict on China, and he's certainly not going to be too strict on Russia. None of this is accurate. None of this holds any water. So what this looks like to me is the intelligence agencies communicating with this supposed free speech platform, the free speech wing of the free speech party, according to Jack Dorsey, to tell them that they needed to keep a heads up for information that might be damaging to Joe Biden's reputation and harm his efforts in the 2020 election. But I digress. They did the same to Facebook, according to CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The FBI basically came to us and was like, hey, you should be on high alert. We thought there was a lot of Russian propaganda in 2016 election. There's about to be some kind of dump similar to that. Sure, fine. Were the FBI warnings of a Russian hack and leak operation relating to Hunter Biden based on any new intel? Yeah, this is why I wouldn't believe them. No, they weren't. Through our investigations, we did not see any similar competing intrusions to what had happened in 2016, admitted FBI agent Elvis Chan in November. Holy moly. Holy moly. Let's see what Elvis has to say. This is why Elon Musk tweeted, Elvis is in the building. Repeatedly, what I would say, can you ask your question, like, what do you mean by repeatedly? Like 100 times, 5 times? Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. I hate when people talk like this. I warned the companies about a potential for hack and dump operations from the Russians and the Iranians on more than one occasion, although I cannot recollect how many times. From my recollection, other senior officials, to include Section Chief Demlow, likely mentioned the possibility of hack and dump operations. Okay, so there's no clarity there. Thank you. That's wonderful. We did not see any similar competing intrusions to what had happened in 2016, so they did not have any new intel. Indeed, Twitter executives repeatedly reported very little Russian activity, e.g. on September 24th, 2020, Twitter told FBI it had removed 345 largely inactive accounts linked to previous coordinated Russian hacking attempts. They had little reach and low follower accounts. Okay, so there was no impact there. In fact, Twitter debunked false claims by journalists of foreign influence on its platform. We haven't seen any evidence to support that claim by _, and an NBC News of foreign-controlled bots. Oh yes, Ben Collins, everyone's favorite. Our review thus far shows a small-scale domestic troll effort. So they're literally admitting that there wasn't actually a foreign threat. After FBI asks about a WAPO story on alleged foreign influence in a pro-Trump tweet, Twitter's Roth says the article makes a lot of insinuations, but we saw no evidence that was the case here, and in fact a lot of strong evidence pointing in the other direction. It's not the first time that Twitter's Roth has pushed back against the FBI. In January 2020, he resisted FBI efforts to get Twitter to share data outside of their normal search warrant process. Okay, that's good at least. Pressure had been growing. We have seen a sustained, if uncoordinated, effort by the intelligence community to push us to share more info and change our API policies. They're probing and pushing everywhere they can, including by whispering to congressional staff. Not surprising. Time and again, FBI asks Twitter for evidence of foreign influence, and Twitter responds they aren't finding anything worth reporting. We haven't yet identified activity that we typically refer to you or even flag as interesting in the foreign influence context. Despite Twitter's pushback, the FBI repeatedly requests information from Twitter that Twitter has already made it clear will not share outside of normal legal channels. Wow, so the FBI was really putting pressure on Twitter to do things that were technically illegal. Then in July 2020, the FBI's Elvis Chan arranges for temporary top secret security clearance for Twitter executives so the FBI can share information about threats to the upcoming elections. On August 11, 2020, FBI's Chan shares information with Twitter's Roth relating to the Russian hacking organization APT-28 through the FBI's secure one-way communication channel teleporter. So once again, teleporter. This interesting one-way channel between the intelligence agency and this free speech platform. The documents will not denote the actors, so I'm providing them here. Interesting. Okay, so we're talking about a Russian hacking organization. Recently, Yoel Roth told Kara Swisher, two of my favorite people, that he had been primed to think about the Russian hacking group APT-28 before news of the Hunter Biden laptop came out. When it did, Roth said, it set off every single one of my finely tuned APT-28 hack and leak campaign alarm bells. I'm sure it did, because they had primed him to imagine that it was Russian disinformation. And sure enough, when it came up, he's like, holy cow, that's exactly what this is. That's crazy. In August 2020, FBI's Chan asks Twitter, does anyone here have top secret clearance? When someone mentions Jim Baker, Chan responds, I don't know how I forgot him. An odd claim, given that his job was to monitor Twitter, not to mention that they worked together at the FBI. Who is Jim Baker? He's former general counsel of the FBI 2014 to 18 and one of the most powerful men in the U.S. intel community. Baker has moved in and out of government for 30 years, serving stints at CNN, Bridgewater, a $140 billion asset management firm, and Brookings. As general counsel of the FBI, Baker played a central role in making the cases internally for an investigation of Donald Trump. So he was behind the Russiagate hoax. Oh, wow, yeah. I forgot about that. Baker wasn't the only senior FBI exec involved in the Trump investigation to get Twitter. Don Burton, the former deputy chief of staff to FBI head James Comey, who initiated the investigation of Trump, joined Twitter in 2019 as director of strategy. As of 2020, there were so many former FBI employees, BU alumni, working at Twitter that they created their own private Slack channel and a crib sheet to onboard new FBI arrivals. Wow. So Twitter is literally just a branch of the FBI. That's great. Efforts continued to influence Twitter's Yoel Roth. I'm surprised he's held out as long as he has. In September 2020, Roth participated in an Aspen Institute tabletop exercise in a potential hack and dump operation related to Hunter Biden. Again, fascinating, pushing the idea of a hack and leak operation centered on Hunter Biden. The goal was to shape how the media covered it and how social media carried it. The organizer was Vivian Schiller, the former CEO of NPR. Interesting, so a journalist. Former head of news at Twitter, former general manager of New York Times, former chief digital officer of NBC News. You guys, this is exactly what I mean when I say that journalists are functionally the enemy of the people. And this is why Michael Malice is so correct when he talks about how much people dislike journalists. And this is exactly why. It's exactly what I'm talking about. This is the person organizing the idea that the Hunter Biden laptop was a hack and leak story that Twitter should pay no attention to / censor outright in the face of the 2020 election. This is absolutely insane to me. Let's see if we can see the rest of this. By mid-September 2020, Chan and Roth had set up an encrypted messaging network so employees from FBI and Twitter could communicate. They also agreed to create a virtual war room for all the internet industry, plus FBI and ODNI, Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Then, on September 15, 2020, the FBI's Laura Demlow, who heads up the Foreign Influence Task Force, and the Elvis Chan request to give a classified briefing to Jim Baker without any other Twitter staff, such as Yoel Roth, present. On October 14th, shortly after the New York Post published its Hunter Biden laptop story, Roth said, "It isn't clearly violating our hacked materials policy, nor is it clearly in violation of anything else," but adds, "This feels a lot like a somewhat subtle leak operation." Andy's fixing my computer. There we go. Thank you, dear. In response to Roth, Baker repeatedly insists that the Hunter Biden materials were either faked, hacked, or both. So, the FBI plant inside Twitter is telling the Twitter guy that the Hunter Biden story was faked, hacked, or maybe even both, and definitely in violation of Twitter policy and should 100% be censored. Baker does so over email and in a Google document on October 14th and 15th. Jim Baker is a lawyer. Why did he put this in writing? Because he must have thought this would never come out. He must have fully believed that he would be above reproach and he could never be held accountable. This is wild to me. Honestly, this is what people in power in the U.S. truly think is the case. They're like, well, I can do whatever I want and I'll never be found out. I'll never be held accountable because everyone's on my side. Well, when you get somebody like Elon Musk, and this is why I was concerned about his health, safety, and well-being, they are going to shake things up to the point that Donald Trump did. And people are not going to be happy about it. I can imagine how Jim Baker felt when Elon Musk bought Twitter. I don't think that he was very comfortable with that. Yet it's inconceivable Baker believed the Hunter Biden emails were either fake or hacked. Of course not. The New York Post had included a picture of the receipt signed by Hunter Biden and an FBI subpoena showing that the agency had taken possession of the laptop in December 2019. They had everything. They literally had receipts with his signature on them. This is so clearly not hacked. So clear. As for the FBI, it likely would have taken a few hours for it to confirm that the laptop had belonged to Hunter Biden. Indeed, it only took a few days for journalist Peter Schweizer to prove it. Yeah, again, with Peter Schweizer. He's great. By 10 a.m., Twitter execs had bought into a wild hack and dump story. Wow, so they were persuaded. Interesting. The suggestion from experts, which rings true, is that there was a hack that happened separately and they loaded the hacked material on the laptop that magically appeared at a repair shop in Delaware. Okay, so Their way of making this make sense to them in their own heads was that somebody had hacked and put incriminating material onto Hunter Biden's laptop. And that is the weakest story I think I've ever heard, but I kind of understand how they're trying to make it work. At 3:38 p.m. that same day, October 14th, Baker arranges a phone conversation with Matthew J. Perry in the office of the General Counsel of the FBI. The influence operation persuaded Twitter execs that the Hunter Biden laptop did not come from a whistleblower. One linked to a Hill article based on a Washington Post article from October 15th that falsely suggested that Giuliani's leak of the laptop had something to do with Russia. Wow, 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 wow. This is why you cannot trust anything that anyone in the media says. If they tell you that the sky is blue, I immediately need you to look up and make sure that they're not lying to you, because if they think they can get away with lying to you about this stuff, they are going to. It is in their best interest to deceive you about all of this. There is evidence that the FBI agents had warned elected officials of foreign influence with the primary goal of leaking the information to the news media. This is a political dirty trick used to create the perception of impropriety. In 2020, the FBI gave a briefing to Senator Grassley and Johnson claiming evidence of Russian interference into their investigation of Hunter Biden. The briefing angered the senators, who said it was done to discredit their investigation. The unnecessary FBI briefing provided the Democrats and liberal media the vehicle to spread their false narrative that our work advanced Russian disinformation. I would be mad too. Notably, then FBI General Counsel Jim Baker was investigated twice in